Hey, and thank you, Kev Mo. Stand up and be strong. With that song coming on, it's time to say hello to all our friends and neighbors, sisters and brothers, all the citizens of the world who are tuned in. It's time for another edition of Heartland at Home. And this is number 31 for the week of December 19th. It's going to be posted on youtube.com/Heartland Media. And you can also hear it on CAN TV. I'm here with Thom Clark and Katy Hogan. I'm Michael James, so let's roll. First thing up is Thom sharing with us something good that happened to him this week. Take it away, Thom.
I'm happy to announce that our guest last week, Glenn Reedus, has been announced as the new interim editor and publisher for the Chicago Reporter, a critically important investigative journal on race and poverty for almost 50 years. It had been on hiatus for the last 3 months, and I've been working with a team of former alums, and we're very happy that it looks like the Chicago Reporter will begin publishing again. Michael?
Well, I read a lot of newspapers, watch a lot of news, but I sometimes do a little reading, particularly when I'm laying up there getting ready to go to bed. And I finally finished Amy Tan's book, Keeping Fish from Drowning. It's a good read. Learn a lot about Burma, Myanmar, and I recommend it. But I'm looking forward to some new books. So keep them coming, and I'll give you a report. Now, how about you, Kate? What's going on for you in the good world or not so good world?
Week after week, you guys talk about, your good times with your family, cooking meals, having visits, quarantining so you can have visits. And on TV now, they actually have commercials made in COVID time that show families cooking together, waving through the window at the grandparents as they drive by. And, some of us who are alone at home and planning on having a whole lot more alone time in the next few months, we're picturing what would that commercial look like for us? And it would include things like way more than ever should. Think about doing it, white people dreading their hair that is growing out of control. It would be a bunch of chain reefer smoking while zoning out to the TV for hours on end. It would be day drinking. It would be, searching for friends you haven't seen in 40 years to have a Zoom conversation with. That, friends, is what it's like. Oh. Speaking of exploding our heads, let me kick this one off.
Oh, I wish we could help you singles at home better than we can, but keep those cards coming, right, Katy? And then maybe a few phone calls. My head exploded this week, and all the other stuff going on during this bumpy transition. Was a new president elected or not? We had the Attorney General Barr apparently finally leaving office, and all the other abominations he's done. But to my mind, the biggest one is the rush to execute in the final weeks of this administration. It's just an abomination. It's happening right over the border in Terre Haute, Indiana, that great pro-life state. Is executing more guys on death row than we've had in years.
Terre Haute, the home of Eugene Debs.
It's abominable. And it's another thing being done in our names by this outgoing administration that we need to have some kind of truth commission to have some kind of reckoning about. Is all.
Thom, there were more people put to death by the federal government than all the states together.
Pretty amazing in this pro-family, pro-life environment, right? Meanwhile, Congress may be legislating as we get close to the holidays, maybe with a pretty limp bill to do some relief as we get ready for the holidays.
How can you call a $900 trillion something limp?
Well, when you consider that the GOP tax cut represented a $1.2 billion giveaway to all those people who really needed that tax break, it's pretty amazing that we are still tolerating this kind of inequity in the way federal benefits are doled out. It does look like there'll be some unemployment relief and maybe another direct check, not as much, but not to help for small businesses, much less states or cities. for schools that are really needed. So Joe Biden and Harris are going to have a lot to handle with a not so cooperative Congress, unless we can get that Georgia vote going, you know?
Good that you reminded people about Georgia. We don't have much on it this week because everyone's making phone calls, writing postcards, trying not to barrage the Georgian voter too much from without, but we're on our knees praying for this election on January 5th. So if you know anybody in Georgia, make sure they're registered, make sure they vote. The good news about the initial mail-in ballot was that it was a higher percentage asked for than in the November 3rd election. So,
And the turnout on the first day of voting was higher than the first day of voting in the November election.
right.
I never thought I'd be saying this, but go Georgia.
Georgia on my mind.
Indeed. We'll dedicate some Georgia songs in the upcoming weeks.
In transition news, our former mayor, Rahm, lost his bid for transportation secretary, though he may still get some international ambassadorship. Meanwhile, we'll have to see whether that internationally renowned expert in sustainable transportation for the 21st century, that former South Bend mayor, how he will do as secretary, as transportation secretary,
You're
because
so bad. You're so bad, Tom. So
I'm hoping
bad.
he does a good job.
I'm hoping he does a good job too, despite the immense system of public trans that happens in South Bend.
I bet you Gary Airport will get a new runway.
Yeah, right.
Remember, well, that was our airport. Mayor Daley made it part of Chicago's
Oh,
deal.
that's right. I forgot about that. Michael,
You know, on a
favorite pick?
Wait, breaking news that we had put in our script for this week was that COVID deaths were on track to cross the terrible number of 300,000 by Christmas. Guess what? We beat that deadline and we've already crossed that threshold. And I am so sorry to say that we have crossed that threshold with 10 days to spare, which we all know means more people will needlessly die in our country and all across the globe. So, yeah.
Doing my reading, I came across an article in the New York Times on Wednesday, the 16th, that I think people would find very interesting. It basically talks about climate change and who will benefit from that. As we see more and more mass migrations from the southern sectors of the globe, people moving north are going to find jobs perhaps in agriculture, both in Canada and Russia. Parts of Russia that have not been able to support crops for forever are now being tilled. And this is something we got to watch because it means millions and millions of people will be trying to get out of Africa and southern hemispheres, move north, and we'll see how they're embraced. Canada, they predict, will triple its size as its agriculture grows. But that means it'll be a very different looking place.
You mean triple its population?
That's what I meant. I didn't mean they were going to take over land that we grabbed from them.
Well, and you said that was in the New York Times this past week?
Yeah, it was. And it basically says Russia stands to benefit more than any other country. Has a lot of land. Only in the eastern sector along China and Mongolia can they do agriculture, but that is changing rapidly. Soybeans, corn.
The other really good news related to COVID is that the first vaccines have arrived. They've hit the frontline healthcare workers, and the joy, relief were on the faces of our hardworking public health head, Dr. Arwade, God love her, and the others, you know, some of whom have broken down on camera as they report the terrible statistics of the last many months. Tom, you've got some more on that, I think.
It's uplifting, even though it'll be weeks and months before any folks beyond healthcare workers and nursing home residents can get the shot. It's really obvious how much the healthcare workers in those various rooms were suddenly relieved compared to those sobby moments of just a week or two ago. And we still have a long winter ahead of us. So please, please stay at home, enjoy the holidays as best as we can, knowing that this year is different. Wash your hands, keep the distance, keep the masks on. We can do it for another 6 months, folks, and beat this thing down. I have found myself remembering those lines to get the polio shot back in the 50s and how relieved our parents were. That's the moment we're in now, except we got to be patient for another 6 months. So do it right. Do it right. You know, as we've been trying to suggest over these following weeks, take that longer walk. Figure out how to do workouts in the living room. Pick up those old books in the stack that you've been waiting to read, or that old guitar recorder, whatever it is you have hanging around. Now's when we have the time to slow down, lay back, take it easy, and beat this thing.
Katie, tell us about something that you saw on TV.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Tom. That's important message for everyone. We've got a winter ahead of us. Things have not changed. And the reports that we're getting on COVID from Europe also have people saying things like, we ended that lockdown too early. And that's what's being said in France today, where President Macron tested positive.
Also, South Korea has had a big spike. They were reported to be doing very well, but that's taken a turn.
Yeah, we know less than we do know about this disease still. So this week in Chicago, we were all unfortunately horrified to see the coverage on CBS of the on-person video that came from a home invasion, erroneous home invasion by Chicago cops into a woman's home while she stood there and said at least 36 times, "You have the wrong house, you have the wrong house." Naked, they came in and were so flippin' rude to her and so incredibly bad. And so the fact that this came out was something of a upset to, of course, to the police department, who had thought that they locked down an agreement by this woman to not talk about it. I don't know exactly the in and outs of CBS getting the on-person video, but it resulted in a big hullabaloo this week in City Council and some really inappropriate and disappointing, to put it mildly, reaction on the part of our lady mayor, also an African-American woman, who was, I'm so sorry. It's just unacceptable, Mayor Lightfoot, for you to talk like that. Anybody want to chime in?
Well, I think that the former prosecutor was showing, I hope not her two-face, but we certainly saw the sort of petulant mayor that I think is going to get in trouble for that. Even her own alderwoman was called out because she voted no on the settlement because she didn't think it was high enough. I really think that we need to be careful going forward, because this really puts it stalls an effort towards police reform and citizen oversight that is really called for post Laquan McDonald and everything else the city's been grappling with, even in this summer. It's just tone deaf, and we need to move on from it.
Yeah.
And this comes at a time when we're seeing that, you know, there's more stealing going on because people are struggling. And what are they stealing? Food. And they're stealing other basic items. Retailers and police departments and loss prevention centers. I mean, this is a business problem now. They're reporting an uptick in necessities of things like hygiene products.
Yeah.
And I know that from my daughter's own work with the Rogers Park Community Response Team. What are they delivering now? Hygiene supplies and toilet paper and all those other basic things that folks can't afford or can't even get to Walgreens to pick up. So it's the time to be safe and careful as best as we can, and to check in on those neighbors who may not have as much as we do, to make sure that we can help them out.
Well, it's time for the weekly and semi-weekly reefer report from the Heartland at Home show. And Tom and I were talking earlier before the show about some news that he found about the taxation of the cannabis. And Tom, why don't you share that with us?
Well, you know, cannabis is now a business beat, and the Sun-Times has a devoted reporter to this, as well as the Tribune. Taxes on cannabis are approaching the same amount in terms of what the state collects in taxes and excise taxes as alcohol. Now, whoever thought that would be something that would happen so quickly? Next year, the state of Illinois, the county, the city will probably collect more in marijuana taxes than they get from selling beer. So that's one way we may pay for the extra expense of the pandemic. Who knows? It's an interesting way to cover public health costs, I guess. But
Tax the potheads. Tax the potheads. Hey, all right. Let's get seasonal here. We're gonna listen to Santa's Second Line in order to welcome our guest into the show today, and that will be our guest, State Representative Robyn Gabel. But right now, listen to New Birth Brass Band with Alain Toussaint. All right.
Santa gonna go back home. Say, Santa, have you been here? Set the jingle bell and a ho, ho, ho. Set the jingle bell and a ho, ho, ho. Set a Santa with your old reindeer, and everybody know Rudolph was here. Say, Santa.
Hey, Robyn Gabel, our state representative from the 18th district. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Katie, Michael, and Tom. Thanks for inviting me today.
It's been a while since we've had you on the show, and a lot has happened.
Yes.
And for you, that's 10 years now that you've been in the legislature.
Yep.
Your priorities when you were elected included climate change or the environment, juvenile justice reform, anti-racism work. How is the 18th district doing on these issues?
Well, the district is one thing, that the legislature is another, and I think that we've made significant progress at the legislative level. In terms of healthcare, I think that we've been able to make a lot of changes to the Medicaid program. Yeah. Initially the Medicaid program did not do much quality control, and they are doing much more of that. They've recognized some of the key issues, and even more recently, they've really taken a public health approach to it completely. And public health is like our environment, our lives, our money, everything impacts our health. And so they're looking at that more now and taking more of a community-based approach. So I think we've made a lot of progress in healthcare. We're addressing more community health workers and telehealth. I've had bills on immunizations to make sure that people get the immunizations that they need. So,
well, that is completely informative to us to hear that about Medicaid and the quality control aspect that has been emphasized. That's good news. Let me also jump to the most recent news. You, along with 16 others, signed an open letter looking to unseat Michael Madigan from his long-term chairmanship of the Illinois Democratic Party, thanks to the embroiled situation he finds himself with ComEd probe. How did you all, the 17 of you, get to that moment? Because we've had a couple other state reps on talking about this issue, and it seems there were different little clusters of you, right? How did you get to the moment of joining, and then what's been the response?
So there was an initial group that actually asked him to resign right then.
Right.
And then more recently, after the election, there were a number of people who just said, I can't vote for him for speaker again. So we're not dealing with his role in the Democratic Party, but we do have the power to elect him to be speaker or not. And our vote counts. And He needs 60 votes. I came in maybe a couple weeks after the election. We had written a private letter to him, and then it got published. So we said, okay, well, I guess we're out. It was myself and 3 other women colleagues that I've worked with over the years. And we just started talking among ourselves. And we had been, we had voted for Madigan in the past. Yeah. And he had helped each of us in many ways. He'd given us the chairmanships we wanted. Bills we wanted to pass. He'd been helpful. But we all felt like, in spite of that, the ComEd scandal that's come out is just too much. It's too much for him to be Speaker of the House. And we just felt like we couldn't vote for him. So it was good to have the support of colleagues when you're trying to make that decision. So, the 4 of us came out together saying, we're not going to be voting for him either. And from the district, people have been quite pleased. The person who ran against me in this last race, his main talking point was, well, Robyn may be a nice person, but she votes for Mike Madigan. And my staff, who was at the polling places listening to this, particularly early voting, they could see people were like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, regardless of that, I still got, 72% of the vote. So obviously it didn't deter enough people to vote for me, but I still felt that there's a strong sentiment that Madigan's time is up. He, particularly from the New Trier Democrats, other places.
Thank you for stepping up, but who would replace him? Who do you see as the replacement speaker? Kelly Cassidy, one of your group, has been pointed out, a member of the Black Caucus. Who would garner those 60 votes that he is 6 votes shy of right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult question. 60 votes is a lot of votes. When we start adding them up and saying, well, we think we got 45 for this one, or, so 60 votes is a lot of votes. I think that some people are not stepping up yet because the speaker's still in the race. There are a number of people who've said, I would like to be speaker, but I'm not running against Mike Madigan. So the dilemma that we have is trying to get Madigan to say, I'm not going to run, so these people can step up and come out. We'll also see what happens when we start voting. I mean, if we don't have, we're starting to meet together, some of the legislators, and trying to see if we can figure out a plan at someone else. But as I said, it's very difficult with him still in the race. So I'm not sure, Tom. I mean, my feeling is that, we're at a precipice here in this country, national reckoning around racism. And I would like to see someone from the Black Caucus. The Black Caucus has come out with 21 votes in a letter supporting Speaker Madigan. I have to respect that. That's their opinion. They think he's the best person for them. And until he's not in the race, we don't know what's going to happen.
Robyn Gabel, switching to the national level and bringing it back to the local. If the Biden-Harris team called you tomorrow and they said, Robyn, there's so much fixing to do, what are the 3 things that you think are most important that we should jump right on? What would you tell them?
Well, first, I would tell them to rejoin the World Health Organization and rejoin the Paris Accord. I think those are 2 international things that are incredibly important. Then I would tell him that we absolutely need another CARES Act, another safety net funding sent through to the states. We just learned that today, came out in Forbes, that there's been 8 million more people in poverty now since June because of the decrease in the extra money that people were getting. So we need to deal with poverty. We need to help people who are unemployed. And then thirdly, I would just say that, as I said, that this is really a national reckoning that we need to do around systemic racism, and we need to address that.
Your particular focus on health equity, if I can put it that way, has certainly been the pandemic has brought new challenges to trying to achieve that goal, and certainly has uncovered, as you've already said, the real shortcomings that we have. How do you possibly prioritize, back with your state responsibilities, actually increasing the commitment of resources to the public health challenges that COVID-19 have made really clear to us?
Well, I'm part of the Medicaid working group, and we're looking at kind of hospital transformation, but also healthcare transformation in the communities. And recently, we're looking for extra dollars to give to the safety net hospitals and hospitals that are in communities where almost everybody that walks through the door is Medicaid. And we know that they don't get paid enough to see only Medicaid patients on their own. So we're sharing some of the CARES dollars and some capital money, and we're planning on putting some of those funds in there, like 100 million. So we're looking for being creative, looking for other sources besides for state dollars that we can use.
I found it ironic, though pleased, that the state certification board prevented Mercy Hospital from closing, but of course it was going to close because it couldn't get state money that had been kind of promised to allow better coordinated South Side response by 4 hospitals. What's going to happen with that?
So just yesterday, the South Side, that consortium of hospitals on the South Side came up with a new plan that actually is so much more inclusive, that they've gone out and vetted it in the community. They vetted it with all the legislators who represent those areas. So I think we've now come up with a good plan for the South Side, and it doesn't include closing any hospitals. So,
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that question about Mercy. Thank you, Tom.
yeah, I was really pleased about it. And
Yeah,
luckily, I just learned about it yesterday. So
Yeah. Well, we like breaking news here on
Yeah.
Heartland at Home.
you have it.
We like to do that.
Have it.
We also have been seeing this particular time that we're living through as a unique opportunity to make change. What you just said, that what you just described happening on the South Side with the medical proposal is absolutely a result of the COVID times, right?
Mhm.
All right. So what are the other ways that we should not ever look to return to normal after this period is over, in your mind? And, what are the most important aspects of things that
Mhm.
that we can undo some of the inequity in if we don't return to?
Well, I think this has given the Black Caucus in House and Senate an opportunity to develop a plan to address this, and they've been working all summer, all fall. They have 4 pillars: education, healthcare, economy, and police and criminal justice reform. And they're going to be laying out their plans very shortly. And I think that it's been an opportunity for us to really delve into this, where we might not have had time otherwise, and truly address like police reform, some of the simple things around having everybody have body cams and more strict rules about wearing them and keeping them on, things around chokeholds and other kind of holds. We already don't allow chokeholds, but there's nuances that were left, loopholes that were left open that we're going to close. The case we saw just the other day of that no-knock kind of warrant thing where they just barge into your house, and oftentimes the wrong house. So
Yeah.
I think we have some opportunities.
Robyn, I'd like to bring it back to the local level, and we're going to go to Evanston now. We recently had Daniel Biss, who has been on the show many times, and you know him well. He was on, and he's going to run for mayor in Evanston. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on how the mayoral race in Evanston is shaking out, and are you supporting anyone yet?
Yeah, I'm supporting Daniel, and I'm thrilled he's running. He's very skilled. He's skilled in terms of dealing with the city council, and I think he's good at policy. And I asked him why he's running, and he said to help the Black community in Evanston. So, you know, when my district first changed and I had more suburbs, as you know, I used to have you guys, but now I have more suburbs. I went door to door and I said, "Hi, I'm your new state rep. I'm just knocking to see, you know, what you need." And they looked at me and said, "I live in Northfield. What do I need?" So I feel like that's the response you get from half, you know, a big chunk of Evanston, but then there's another chunk. And it's not only African-American, but there are a lot of people of all nationalities that could use some help in Evanston. And I think that Daniel's gonna be help to figure that out. I'm very excited about our reparations bill that we passed, and we're gonna be able to give some money to people for home ownership, which is critical in building wealth. So I'm excited.
Okay, let's go back to the state level again, and we're going to also go back to the marijuana. And what's the story with the equity licenses that were promised to people of color? What's going on?
Yeah, it's a mess. You know, I haven't kept up on it all the time, but I know initially what happened was that the requirements that were put in were just a little too strict, and anyway, it didn't work out. And there just were a lot of people, African Americans, who had great applications and just were cut out. And I think that we're reviewing the whole thing. And we plan to do it piecemeal, like have a few more contracts and then a few more, so we could look at it and see, well, what's happened? If we haven't met our equity goals, then we'll change the next series that go out. But yeah. I mean, I got calls the minute the results were released. My phone started blowing up. Nothing compared to Kelly Cassidy's, but it did ring, and we raised a lot of these issues. And I think they're now in a holding pattern, which is too bad because we could get so much more money in.
Another issue that has come up on the state level that has a big impact on the city is the way regulatory stuff works. And in particular, I'm thinking of the case where the state kind of passed on zoning to the city where scrap metal plants ought to be located. And as you may know, while this is a city issue, it's a regional problem. So you have Lincoln Yards getting $1 billion in TIF money, but kicking out General Scrap Iron so the southeast side can get it because the state zoning code requirements said it was okay to put it down there in an already environmentally challenged area. So why is it rich folks don't get scrap metal that they produce recycled in their own area? For that matter, we could start talking about composting gardens and all that. It always has to get shipped to the southeast side.
Yeah, no, not fair. And you know, I feel like a lot of our regulatory stuff at the state, we tend to be the Wild West. We don't have good regulations in many areas. And this is just one example. You know, we don't have good regulations in insurance. And so I think that, you know, we need to take a look at that. Yeah, no, that's a serious problem, Thom.
Clearly, Robyn, we should have you on more often. You've educated us in this short 20 minutes more than we have been. So we're going to make this a little more regular. But before we let you go, can I ask you, what's helping you most get through the pandemic? Is it time with family, reading, watching movies, new hobbies, reconnecting with old crafts? Anything in particular helping you?
So what's been saving me is our friend Marilyn Katz offers a free session on Pilates every single day from 9:30 to 10:30 and Saturdays. And I'm telling you, first of all, if you're depressed, it gets you out of bed. You're like, I got to get up. I got to go to my Pilates class. And it is so helpful. I feel like, oh my God, I'm probably in better shape now than I was before the pandemic. So it's really, that's the one thing I would say that's helped me the most. Well, wait, I'm exaggerating because I do have a new grandchild, and the baby has actually made my life so much happier. So
congratulations on all of that. And thank you so much for being with us. We're going to probably go into a few closing remarks, but we're really appreciative for you to have made time for us today.
Happy to see you all. I wish I could see you in person. Take care, guys. Mwah.
All right.
Well, as we near the end of this week's Heartland at Home, we want to go a little bit to sports. And there was a monumental happening yesterday when the commissioner of Major League Baseball finally announced that the Negro Leagues would be included at a major league level. And that means that a lot of people you may not have heard of, but were great ball players, but were not afforded the opportunity to play in the major leagues, had to play in the Negro Leagues, and they faced some rough times. This is a good thing. And Thom, you had a few comments about the kind of things that they had to overcome and how we'll figure out who gets to go to the Hall of Fame.
Well, it's great that some will be able to get to the Hall of Fame, but one of the biggest things about baseball are statistics.
Yep.
And I think one of the biggest challenges the league will have is how can they possibly incorporate these black baseball stars' great stats into the regular stars. It's going to be really impossible to do, so they never will fully get recognition for what they actually accomplished. They were in poor stadiums. They had to live in segregated hotels, if even that. They had virtually no money in terms of the daily stipend for playing games. It was unclear which league they were playing in from week to week. And so compiling stats were just really impossible to do. These guys will never get their full due. It's one more legacy of what we've done to Black Americans over the ages. But hopefully the Hall of Fame recognition will alleviate some of it. We also want to remember this week someone who was on our show several times, a great blues artist, Joseph Mojo Morganfield. Our music producer, Lynn Orman Weiss, was not only his agent, but they became very dear friends. And we were going to be releasing a single that he is coming out on Delmark Records this weekend. Unfortunately, he passed away suddenly, way too young, getting ready to do an album next summer. We wanted to do a tribute as we play, thanks to Lynn, It's Good to Be a King. And so with that, we offer this tribute to Joseph Mojo Morganfield.
subject. Bend down and kiss my ring. Hey, Lord, Lordy, you know that it's good to be king. Oh, hey, Lordy, Lord, you know that it's good to be king. Yeah, hey, Lordy, Lord, you know that it's good to be king.
Again, we're our utmost sympathy to the family and to our co-producer Lynn for their loss in Joseph Mojo Morganfield. Thanks for playing that, Tom. We have actually a little more extended in memoriam this week because we have to start with one of our own. James Porter's mom, Dorothy Porter, passed, and James has been an incredible engineer and player on the WLUW field for a while. He has a show of his own, which as I speak, I'm not really sure if he's doing right now. Maybe one of my partners knows. But he did write an incredible remembrance of Charlie Pride this week. So look for James Porter's writing on Charlie Pride. He's such a great writer on musicians. We also said goodbye this week to an incredible Chicago original, Jeannie Morris, who I remember watching as a young woman. She was the first woman sports reporter. And this week when they played the Chicago Tonight interview that she did a few years ago, I think it was 2014 with Phil Ponce, she talked about exactly what she had to go through as a woman and what she said. One of which was something like, I'm the one who's from Chicago. I loved that line. So if you'd like to remember Jeannie Morris, look up the Chicago Tonight interview. God bless her. She was a real Chicago original. And then the other one I want to make note of is Chapman Kelly. Not everybody was aware of this, but Chapman Kelly was an artist, a Texas artist, who found his way to Chicago back in the 80s and put together a garden of wildflowers in Chicago's front yard, Grant Park, surrounding and in front of the Buckingham Fountain that was there, that he added to and made huge, 66,000 square feet before he was done. Over 20 years, between the late 80s and 2004, I think is when the Park District pulled it all up. It's an incredible story, and it's basically his teaching about, the fact that wildflowers and the, what do you call the birds and bees? Anyway, Chapman. Pollinators. Thank you. Pollinators. Yikes. Okay.
As we go through the remaining of this holiday season, I want to remind you that before the end of the year to shop local in this strange holiday season. Help your local small businesses. If you need food, you can order it from places like Morris Market. Just give them a call, give them your order. They've done that for a long time, but it's just one more thing. You don't always have to do it online. You might be able to get help other ways by just calling the local business. So be safe, be careful, but also support your local businesses.
We're going out today with Sweet Honey of the Rock, a longtime favorite of a lot of ours, and they're going to sing their old favorite, Breaths.
And we want to thank the whole team of Heartland at Home. That would be Katy Hogan, Thom Clark, Michael James, Lynn Orman, Luis Mejia, and James Porter, and Susan Clark. So, Katy.
Good in the world.
The world needs all the good we do.
All power to the people.